Heisenberg's uncertainty principle tells us that at a specific curvature of space, knowledge can be transferred into energy.
Heisenberg's uncertainty...
And this is key now. Matter.
You're listening to Binnall of America Audio.
You are in direct violation of Space Treaty 109. Your ass is mine.
Aha! Treaties only go up to 103. Everyone from space knows that.
Well, I mean, I know that. I was just playing with you.
Those treaties are very real and very serious.
Is it possible, or does science know if it's possible for humans to adopt the ability to see these other dimensions, or are we pretty much tapped out at this point, and we're not going to be able to pick it up?
I think so, because brain research tells us that when you are exposed to a new experience, you create, the neurons fire off new transmissions, and you create new dendrites, new connections in the brain that allow you to perceive that experience. And they always tell you that as you age, senior citizens can keep their brains healthy by taking on new experiences, because if you are put in a situation where you see something you've never seen before, well, you're creating that neural pathway to then begin seeing it all the time. And you can almost explain it as simple as if you're going to go buy a new car and you decide you're going to buy a green Volkswagen, all of a sudden you're going to see green Volkswagens everywhere. They've always been there, but you've never had a need to perceive them.
Exactly.
Now that you do have that need, you can't help but not see them. So brain research tells us that we can be perceiving a heck of a lot more than we do simply by having that first initial exposure to something new.
One of the interesting things that a lot of people talk about is how children have a lot more paranormal experiences, and maybe that they are not conditioned to disregard the perception of these extra dimensions and things like that. Do you think that might be going on?
Absolutely. I remember being a kid and seeing all kinds of things and hearing voice. I mean, your parents tell you that it's just your imaginary friends or whatever. But I think the children are born closer to the purity of that conscious state. And as you become exposed to society and school and conditioning and outside information, you lose that ability. And I have a 5-year-old son, and we say that they're incredibly imaginative. Well, what is imagination? Imagination is the ability to perceive things that are not right there in front of you. And I absolutely believe, in fact, I'm really surprised that people in the paranormal community are not doing more research into children. Sitting with children, talking to them, getting their experiences down on paper. I think that they hold the key because they're closest to that purity of consciousness.
I've thought about that myself, actually.
I'd love to see a book. Maybe I should write it.
It would be interesting. Yeah, it would be cool. You'd have to overcome the frightened parents, though. I don't know.
You would, yeah.
And then you touched on the 0-point field. Can you talk a little bit about that, sort of educate people a little bit about what it is and what we think it is?
Yeah, I think if a lot of real cutting-edge scientists believe that this could be the big one. This could be the theory of everything. And basically the 0-point field is the ground state of energy. The energy vibrates at the lowest state possible. It's a very fundamental form of energy. Mm-hmm. And we always thought that empty space was empty, but it's not. Apparently, there is this slight jiggle of energy that goes on, and it's at the most basic bottom level, 0 point. And the idea is that if this energy is present everywhere, which is the belief, then it can be possibly used as a fuel source if we ever develop the technology to extract it in big enough quantities. There's also the belief that it's already being used as a fuel source by advanced civilizations that are coming here to see us, and that's how UFOs could be traveling. It's self-regenerating. You can never run out of it. You fuel up as you go. You don't have to stop and do anything. But there's also the more metaphysical aspects. If this is the ground state of energy, the fundamental source from which everything else springs forth, all of the fundamental forces, all types of matter, energy, sources, whatever. Could this be similar to the Akashic records of Edgar Cayce, the past, present, and future, the memory of every event, every intention, every action. And if this is the sort of repository field of everything, past, present, and future, then that would explain a lot of paranormal activity. Ghosts, are they energy coming up from the zero-point field, slipping into our reality? Psi-ability, ESP, are people able to tap into this field to see the past, to see the future? Energy vortices, are there spots on the planet Earth that you can access zero-point energy and create a whole host of anomalies and events that don't occur everywhere else? So the zero-point field is really neat in terms of physics because it could be the one that brings together all the four fundamental forces, and in terms of the paranormal because it really allows for everything, remote viewing, poltergeist activity, just everything.
At the risk of getting too scientifically esoteric here, is it possible? Is it possible that the zero-point field is one of the many dimensions?
I don't think that's where the research is going. It seems that everything would be encompassed by the zero-point field.
Okay.
All dimensions, all parallel universe. It's really, I hate to use the word godlike, but it is that sort of ground state of creation, of creative energy. And so dimensions exist within the zero-point field. Parallel universes exist within the zero-point field.
All right.
It is
the foundation almost?
The foundation of everything.
Okay.
And that's putting it,
simply,
very general. That to me is the most fascinating thing I came across, and I would strongly suggest that people read up on it. It's got great implications, even just as a basic fuel source for us to one day fuel our homes and our cars, but also the metaphysical aspect of it. And
you touch on one sticky topic that definitely is a big part of the esoteric, and that is that the zero-point field could potentially be a source of anti-gravity and unlimited free energy and all this great stuff everybody wants.
Right.
But, of course, then we have to worry about the infamous powers that be. And
ExxonMobil and British Petroleum.
Exactly.
Yeah, and those comments have been made to me by people that have been doing research. And, again, it comes down to who's going to fund you. If you come up with a way to extract ZPE, zero-point energy, who's going to patent it? Who's going to buy you out? There is research going on right now into zero-point energy on behalf of Boeing, a couple of aeronautical, big aerospace industries, the Department of Defense, NASA. So you can already see that the big powers that be are getting their claws in because they realize that if there is something to this, this is something that they could use as an alternative source of fuel, and of course they want to get their hands on it first. The extraction method and patent it so then they could charge us an arm and a leg for what is basically free energy.
Yeah.
But also if it can be used for military purposes, that's always their number one, what they're looking for.
So do you think that the science is maybe more advanced than we know, and that it's kept in the black right now until they can figure out a way to put a meter on it, which is sort of an old expression in the esoteric world?
Right.
Do you think that might be going on? Or do you
definitely think that's always going on. There are always, the Congress has a gigantic black budget that we have absolutely no access to. We have no idea what they're doing with it. So you can be sure that if scientists are talking about the zero-point field as the most cutting-edge concept of our time, you can be sure that some of those black programs are involved in zero-point energy. If it's being done for sinister reasons, I'm sure maybe some of it is.
Yeah.
But I think that obviously the authorities always want to stay one step ahead of other countries
and
the next guy. But you also have research that's being done by individual scientists. So I think one way or the other we're going to find out if an extraction method becomes available, especially if the decline of fossil fuel availability really demands that somebody gives us that alternative, or the people are going to riot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's a good way to get them to cough it up.
Yeah. So if the oil runs out and people start going crazy, there'll be a breakthrough suddenly.
Yeah, all of a sudden, out of nowhere.
And then one really fascinating part of the book that you talk about is paranormal events as contagious events. How it sort of spreads around. Can you talk a little bit about that strange phenomenon as far as paranormal events go?
It is, and it doesn't always happen, but I've seen it happen enough, and I've heard other paranormal researchers talk about this idea of contagion, of paranormal events almost being infectious. That if you have, a person who sees a UFO, you might find several people in their family that have had sightings or abductions. The same thing with ghosts, ESP, things like that. Mm-hmm. But I suspect that that's because of consciousness. When you're around people that are experiencing something, you tend to open your consciousness or at least align yourselves with them. It sort of becomes synchronous if you're an open-minded person. It also could be that there is something about mass consciousness that allows for contagion. Tipping point. We hear about the book, The Tipping Point. If you have a certain number of people that are experiencing something, does it jump to another community or to another group of people? And that could be happening on a conscious level. Or if you hear about a bunch of ghostly apparitions in your neighborhood, you might have one because you're either becoming aware of it where you never noticed it before, or you're becoming open to something you've never been open to before. But there's also the possibility that what's happening is happening on a subconscious level. And there's some kind of trigger that allows experiences to jump from, and this happened, during the 1600s with demonic possession, where it would jump from one nun to another or one woman to another. And it's really interesting because I know a lot of people that have had UFO sightings that tell me, my sister had one. Oh, and then my Aunt Jane did, and it's just really or their neighbor did, and they found out that this person had an abduction experience, and then this person did, and it really seems like catching a cold.
It's almost like what you said about the green car thing too, in a sense that if
perception.
Yeah, if you're in a haunted house and you visit there all the time, and then one day they're like, there's ghosts here.
Right.
And the next time you come over, you might see the ghost.
You see it. Ta-da! Your awareness is totally changed. Your perception is totally changed. Yeah. It's just like people that are converted to different religions. I mean, they all of a sudden, they perceive a belief that they weren't aware of before. And it changes their whole life.
One personal anecdote you had in the book that I wanted you to extrapolate on a little bit was this deja vu experience, because you encourage people to sort of roll with it.
Try to go with it if you can.
So can you talk about what happened here with your deja vu experience and when you went with it and what went on with that?
It's funny because ever since that, I haven't had very many. I think maybe I by writing about it, but usually I'll have a lot of deja vu, and it'll last, I don't know, a few seconds. But what I started noticing as I was writing the book and doing the research is I kept hearing that, deja vu, there's more to it than what we think. There's more to it than memory. This goes beyond memory because what you're doing is you're remembering something that's happening to you right now. And if you read about parallel universes and other dimensions that we might be accessing, maybe what you're doing is for that 10 seconds accessing yourself in a parallel universe, doing exactly what you're doing now, but with a little tiny different result in that other universe. And so I would try to just sort of sink into the experience. My feeling is the minute you say to yourself, I'm having deja vu, you shut it down. But if you can just, and I've done this successfully a few times where you just sort of sink into it, don't analyze, shut down the analytical brain, and you can start predicting to yourself what's going to happen next. As if you're walking between two worlds. And you're observing, okay, I'm very similar in these two worlds, but in this one, I haven't quite done what I've done in this one yet. So let's look over here and see what I'm going to do next. And it's really bizarre. And then when you come out of it, you really feel like, okay, did I access my existence in a parallel universe. Because according to these theoretical physicists, we would be alive in an infinite number of parallel universes. We would also be dead. We would not exist in some, and others we would, I mean, every possible potentiality is there.
That's very exciting. Next time I have deja vu, I'm going to have to try that.
Try it, yeah. The problem is if you get too analytical, it just, boom, it's over.
I know. I'm afraid I'm going to have deja vu and then think of the book, and then it'll be over, and then I'll be like, damn.
I know. See, you'll never get to experience that.
You also you take a really nice look at ancient religions as a window to the new science and how they were sort of on the same track we are now, but we have instruments and
right, laboratories.
Ways. Yeah, exactly.
Sure, microscopes and this, that, and the other thing.
What can ancient religion teach us about new science, or at least what they thought and that kind of thing?
I think they were all talking about the same stuff. I just think it all came down to language and semantics. And if you look at the basic beliefs of most major religions and most metaphysical traditions, they all believe in a fundamental source of energy, whether they call it God or Allah or Chi or whatever. There is a belief in a foundational creative force, which we can now say, well, gee, that's the zero-point field. And you hear, you'll hear references to other worlds or in my Father's house are many mansions. I love that quote because it reminds me of parallel universes, other dimensions. Ancient religions talk about accessing different levels of reality. Well, now we're being told that those different levels of reality do exist. So if you go back and you look at the most, without the doctrine, if you just look at the core teachings, it's very metaphysical, it's very cutting edge. Hermetica, the ancient Greeks were very much into, they had such an amazing understanding of both the cosmic and the quantum, and how as above, so below, and how the laws that applied to one applied to the other, and just this amazing understanding. But what you have to do is separate all the doctrine and the dogma and just go to the core teaching. And it sounds an awful lot like you're reading about quantum physics.
Exactly. And sort of one social sort of dilemma, I guess you could say, is that as we get closer and closer to figuring everything out, there's always sort of that worry that maybe we shouldn't be figuring it out, or maybe that once we figure things out, we're going to end up, making a nuclear bomb out of multiple dimensions.
Exactly.
Do you think that we'll be able to harness that knowledge without destroying ourselves, or is that really the crux of human evolution?
And we always seem to get too big for our britches, and then we're taken down a few notches. I don't think we're ever going to understand everything because I don't think we were meant to. I think if we did, we would evolve to a different type of consciousness, and maybe that's what happens after you die. But I also think that if we are being told that the universe itself seems to have an element of consciousness, and it is a creative element, and it is a transformative element, that would mean that there's no way we could understand the truth because it's constantly recreating itself, which means that there's constantly a new truth that needs to be uncovered. And it seems like a lot of times we think we know the facts about something, and then somebody comes along with a new fact, and that just overturns everything that we thought we understood. I do think we're going to understand a lot more than we do now, but I don't know that we're ever going to be able to say, aha, I get it. I get what reality is and what's going on here.
And you say that you think we're going to understand how these things work. In a sort of practical sense, I forget, there was an expression somebody used, but like, how's it going to affect the price of the loaf of bread?
Yeah.
How do you think these, if we were to, prove that if this, let's say, for instance, if this CERN lab comes up with the string and it's okay, the string is real, how does that affect the price of the loaf of bread?
It really, the only way, it's like we could prove that UFOs and ghosts and strings and M theory exist, but we still won't really know why or what their purpose is. And that's where you have to kind of go on faith and have meaning in your own life. Mm-hmm. But just the discovery of a string or the landing of a UFO and little aliens get out and they wave on the nightly news and everybody says, aha, now we know. It's not going to change human existence except in the way that we make it meaningful to us on an individual level. And one of the ways that might happen is if what quantum physics says more than anything else is that we are all connected. Mm-hmm. On the quantum level, every particle is connected, every wave, everything is connected. And if we prove different things like string theory or ghosts or whatever, what we could try to get out of that is the fact that we're all connected to each other, we're all linked somehow, energy, matter, whatever. And could we please start treating each other a little bit better? And our planet. That's the only real meaningful that the application, I guess, that you could make, but it's not going to change the fact that you still have to get up and go to work and do your laundry. It might open your mind and make you feel more excited about life, maybe not fear death so much, but you still got to go do all that other stuff. It's not going to change.
Yeah. And do you think that as this science gets more advanced, then how do you see the paranormal phenomenon coming into effect in a sense that, like, as they get more advanced in the science, one day they're going to be like, oh, wait a minute, that's how ghosts happen, that sort of thing?
I think that could happen, although one of the real interesting things that's coming out of paranormal research now is the connection with human consciousness. And, guys like Nick Redfern talk about this. Could we be consciously involved in the creation of some of these events? UFOs, aliens, ghosts, monsters and spectral creatures. I think we could prove the structure or the how behind a ghost sighting. Okay, this is how the energy is synchronizing at this particular frequency, and the environment has to be this way, and the climate has to be this way, and the electromagnetic field. We could get all that down, but there now seems to be a new element that's added in, and that's the observer.
Exactly.
And that goes back to quantum physics. How are we, as the observer, affecting the outcome of the experiment, even with a UFO sighting? And that's really interesting.
And it's sort of, you mentioned in the book, too, kind of like how the hardcore skeptics don't ever see UFOs because their consciousness does not allow for it.
Well, it's funny because J. Allen Hynek was a real skeptic until he got, was made in charge of Project Blue Book. I don't think he ever had a sighting, though. Don't think I read that he ever had a sighting, but he became a believer just by seeing all of the evidence. I think a hardcore skeptic, if they could have an experience, it would be involuntary. Yeah. Then again, subconsciously, maybe they're asking for it. They want to prove that they're right. We want to be right all the time. And then what happens is the brain creates that neural pathway for that experience to be acceptable.
Another way I was sort of looking at the previous question in a sense was that, like, if we, like you said, if we could maybe figure out all the elements that come into effect to create a ghost, if you will.
Right.
Do you think once we nail down one paranormal phenomenon, like if we can prove ghosts and how it comes about and everything, do you have a feeling that maybe that might start a domino effect where then we can start looking at the other things and all of a sudden everything will become exposed?
It might, because I think if it's all involving, what it seems to all be involved with is the transfer of energy, different types of matter that are being able to manifest in different ways, either in a time anomaly or a UFO sighting, or a lot of people say they look like a projection. Who knows? Could be a holographic projection, a ghost, a cryptozoological creature. If something is going on that involves the crosstalk of energy and matter from one universe or one dimension or one level of reality into ours, and we can peg down the mechanism that opens that door, I'm sure it's going to explain a whole host of stuff and possibly some paranormal stuff that we've never even imagined is out there.
Oh, no.
Because it's kind of like once you know how to unlock the door and open it,
Yeah.
then you can let what's on the other side come in or not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And there could be stuff on the other side of that door that we don't even have a concept for.
And well, I guess what about that sort of idea too, that it might be dangerous to fiddle with this kind of thing, sort of like how people say you shouldn't play with a Ouija board.
Exactly. I think.
Yeah.
Again, I think you're right. We could be toying with negative energy or negative forces, but I think a lot of that might come down to the consciousness of the observer again, the intention. I mean, if the intention is to do something bad with this knowledge, that's up to the person who's trying to open the door. People always ask me, do you believe in demons and devils and things like that? I don't know that I believe that there are demons. I do believe that there's negative energy. There's negative states of matter. There's destruction. There's destructive energy. There are destructive forces, but we're the ones that put meaning to those. However, I can't say with 100% certainty that there aren't negative entities that are going to come through and mess up our lives. And I would be nervous about playing around with that. So, maybe we're only being given, things are being revealed to us a little bit at a time because that's all we really are emotionally and psychologically equipped to handle.
Where do you see all of this cutting-edge science going in the near future, in the distant future? Where we might be headed with all this?
Two directions seem to be really coming out of it. One is to try to find practical applications, like with the zero-point field. Can we do something with that energy for practical purposes? And the other one, the real big one, is consciousness research. Everything exciting that is happening seems to be going off in that direction. There actually is a third tangent, and that's quantum computing and nanotechnology. That's real exciting. And I think, at some point the three of them are going to be converging. But the consciousness research is the hottest, most exciting thing right now because we're starting to learn just how much power we have as co-creators in our reality. I mean, that's exciting.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You said like how we probably won't ever really get to a definitive answer. Does that make a theory of everything pretty much an endless pot of gold at the end of the rainbow in the sense that
I don't know. You can come up with a theory of everything for one point in time, but then as more is revealed,
you have to adjust.
We've got to tweak it.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be an ongoing quest.
There you go. Yeah.
The holy grail that is never quite attainable.
And also here I saw on your website that you have a new book coming out, Super Volcano.
Super Volcano.
And it's co-written with your dad, which is really awesome. Talk about Super Volcano and how you ended up writing a book with your dad.
Well, we always wanted to write something together. I'm a big earth science buff, having grown up with a geophysicist father. So we decided to write about a particular supervolcano called Toba that erupted about 75,000 years ago, and it literally almost drove the human species to extinction.
Oh, wow.
And it created what's called a population bottleneck. Literally took the human population, which was a little over 100,000, down to estimates are between 2,000 and 8,000 individuals.
Oh, wow.
And we're going to show all kinds of genetic and geological evidence that Toba not only altered the climate and drastically changed, the way the Earth looked, but that it changed the course of human evolution, and every single person alive today is a descendant, a genetic direct descendant of a survivor of Toba.
Where was the volcano again?
It was in Sumatra, Indonesia.
Oh, weird. Where the tsunami happened, too.
Oh, yeah. That area is just full of icky stuff, earthquakes and tsunamis and massive volcanoes. And we're also going to talk about the possibility of another supervolcanic eruption, possibly Yellowstone, which is on everybody's lips nowadays, or Long Valley, California. And we're going to speculate as to what that scenario might look like. Whether or not we could survive it. It's really exciting. We're right in the middle of it.
Awesome.
It'll be out at the end of August.
Oh, great. Cool.
Yeah.
Definitely. We'll have to have you back for that.
Oh, I would love it. It's fun. Yeah, fun stuff to talk about.
Definitely. Okay, well, you said you get the book coming out at the end of August, Super Volcano, co-written with your dad. Is there anything else coming up on the horizon that you want to mention, speaking engagements or anything exciting like that?
Go to my website. Everything will be on there
Awesome.
or on the blog, and hopefully once I finish the Volcano book, I'm going into a third book. I can't talk too much about it now.
Nice, all right.
I haven't signed, but it is a very popular metaphysical subject, I will say.
Oh, boy.
And I'll let you know as soon as that's a done deal.
Awesome.
But yeah, I always make my calendar, and people can always contact me through the website.
Great. And
I answer every email.
Oh, awesome. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
And the website is Marie D. Jones, MariedJones.com, and science.blogspot.com, spelled with a P, PSIENCE.blogspot.com. Have you run into a lot of problems with people mispronouncing the name and trying to figure it out?
It looks great on paper and on the book cover, but yeah, it's P-Science? P-Science? It was actually my publisher's choice to use that word. I was kind of fighting it, saying, no, nobody will know how to pronounce it.
Has that expression been around for a while? Now I'm going to butcher I just call it science.
Yeah, science, because, when we talk about psi activity, the P is silent. The term psi has been around forever. I've only seen science maybe one or two times used, so it's not something that's, well, now maybe it will be, but
let's hope so.
It wasn't used. Yeah.
Well, it's a really it embodies the spirit really of the book too, in a sense, because the P is silent, like the paranormal is silent.
Right, exactly.
To the scientific
but it's merging with science.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it all works together. Marie, thank you very much for being on the program. The book, of course. Oh, where can people get the book?
Everywhere.
Awesome.
Brick-and-mortar bookstores, anywhere online. Everywhere books are sold, from what I understand.
Fantastic. Well, Marie, thank you for being on the show. The book is Science, PSIENCE, How New Discoveries in Quantum Physics and New Science May Explain the Existence of Paranormal Phenomena. If you're a fan of the esoteric, you got to read this book. It'll catch you up to speed with what the mainstream science is doing and how it applies to esoteric research. Marie, it's a fascinating book. Like I said, it really educated me on a lot of stuff that I was only peripherally aware of.
Well,
so
thank you.
I appreciate that a lot, and thank you very much for being on the show.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
There you have it, folks. That does it for this week's edition of Binnall of America Audio. Big thanks to Marie Jones for coming on the show. You can find out more information on the book Science at www.science.blogspot.com, PSIENCE.blogspot.com, or at Marie's formal website, www.mariedjones.com, MariedJones.com. Moving right along, it's time now for Binnall of America Audio listener feedback, and this week's letter comes from Jason in Missouri. Here's what Jason had to say. Tim, I just want to tell you how much I enjoy your show. I found it during Season 1 and have continued to follow it. I think you do a terrific job, not only bringing on great guests, but asking them intelligent questions. I've listened to a number of esoteric talk programs for quite a few years, and think yours is one of the most well done. I appreciate the fact that you went beyond the normal topics of the genre and interviewed the author of a book about Philo T. Farnsworth. Among other things, I teach a mass communication history class at a university, and had just finished my lecture on the history of television when I heard the interview. I will incorporate your interview, or at least parts of it, into my course next semester. I also enjoyed your interview with Mac Tonys. I've interviewed Mac a couple times over the past few years, and have enjoyed his take on Mars and cryptoterrestrials. He's a really interesting guy. I expect some big things out of Mac in the coming years. I guess this was just a long way to say thanks for your program. From Jason in Missouri. Thank you very much for writing in, Jason. I really appreciate the feedback, and I am humbled by your kind words there at the beginning of the letter. We do our best here on Binnall of America Audio to set ourselves apart from the esoteric talk radio genre, and hopefully our great listeners have noticed that. Speaking to the Philo Farnsworth episode of BOA Audio from back in February, I'm a huge fan of that episode. I'm also tremendously happy with the way we have spaced out a variety of different topics over the course of this season. I'm just amazed by the sheer variety that we've managed to cover, and I'm glad that it has resonated with the listening audience. Thank you for writing in, Jason. I appreciate it. Keep us updated on your mass communication course next semester. Let us know if the BOA Audio made the cut on the syllabus. I would really get a kick out of that. If you would like to be a part of Binnall of America Audio listener feedback, here's how you go about doing it. Go to binnallofamerica.com, click the contact button in the top right-hand corner of the screen. That will give you the information on how to get in touch with me. Or simply write to BOAAudio@hotmail.com, BOAAudio@hotmail.com. Either one of those methods will put your correspondence on the road to being featured on Binnall of America Audio listener feedback. Next, we thank the fantastic BinnallofAmerica.com staff, Leslie, Chiron, R. Lee, Joe V., Ralph Molesworth, and Tina Senna. Doing something a little bit different this week. Let me give you a rundown of what we had for you this past week from the BOA staff. Tina Senna talked about alien invasion, fact or crap. She looked at the alien invasion theories from a number of different angles and tried to figure out, really, is there anything to it or not? Leslie's Gray Matters on Tuesday covered the Art Bell Lifetime Achievement Award from her perspective, being a longtime Art Bell listener. She was there from the very beginning. And Chiron on Wednesday had a really cool look at the Zodiac Killer and the coverage of this Zodiac Renaissance by the esoteric media. Those were all this past week. We got a ton of stuff coming up for you next week at binnallofamerica.com. The BOA staff is putting out top-notch reading material week in and week out, and as I've been saying for the last few weeks, if you're only listening to Binnall of America Audio, you're only getting half the story. You gotta check out the columns. Big thanks to the staff at BOA for your help and support with the audio series and the website. binnallofamerica.com. Make it a part of your everyday search for esoteric news and opinion. If you're a long-time Binnall of America Audio listener or an appreciative newcomer, and you want to help support the audio series and the website, there's a simple way to go about doing it. You go to binnallofamerica.com, take a look on the right-hand side, you'll see a PayPal button. You click it and you make a donation. No donation is too small. All donations go towards keeping BOA Audio up and running and available for all our great listeners worldwide. So if you can, make a donation. It would be greatly appreciated. Next week on the program, we have something very different for you. First of all, it's a surprise. We're not going to even announce what it is until Wednesday, but I will tease some of it for you. It is an experimental edition of Binnall of America Audio. It's going to have at least 5 guests, 2 of them excerpted from previous BOA Audio episodes, the other 3 fresh material with updates and coverage of a specific theme tying into esoterica. It's not the Phoenix Lights, it's not Roswell, it's something a little bit lighter. And as I said, it's an experimental edition of BOA Audio, but it's a theme special, and I'll be interested in hearing the feedback on this one when we roll it out next weekend. In addition to the big special theme episode next week on the program, it's also going to be a double Binnall weekend once again. I've been invited by former BOA Audio guest Greg Bishop to appear on his program, Radio Mysterioso, and I, of course, have accepted the invitation. April 1st, 2007, April Fool's Day, what a way to celebrate. Binnall will be giving his second interview. It'll be my first ever live interview, and Greg promises that he will open up the phone lines so you can potentially get a chance to call in and talk to me, and I'll be answering questions from callers. I'm already scared about that. I was going to preview it next week on the program, but I figured by the time that some people got the MP3s for next week's program, it would already have passed, so I figure I'll give the plug this week. Barring any unforeseen circumstances, I will be appearing on Radio Mysterioso, April 1st, 2007, 8 to 10 p.m. Pacific Time, 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. Eastern Time. Be there, be square. You can find out more information on the program at excludedmiddle.com, excludedmiddle.com, or at killradio.org, KILLRADIO.org. Binnall on Radio Mysterioso. Check it out. On that note, folks, it's time for me to sign off. Thank you so much for listening. Until you hear from me next week, this is Tim Binnall, signing off.